hello, and thank you for joining me for another IT Wire and Alex on Tech video. I have with me today Surya Panditi. He is the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Agile Management for CA Technologies. Welcome to the program.
Great, thank you. Great to be here.
Now, we did speak yesterday to Ken Martin, who works on Agile Management in the Australia Pacific region, Asia Pacific region. But I understand you're sort of his boss and work globally?
Not really, but yeah, I have a global responsibility, but
yeah.
on the product side.
Sure. So he gave us his definition of Agile Management in 2017 and how it had matured since CA World last year. So how do you define it? What's your response to that sort of same question?
Yeah, I think the maturity is really around moving from focusing on process to focusing on outcomes. It's one thing to say we're going to adopt agile methodologies, we're going to do check all the boxes of what agile means, but it's a very different thing to talk about what the outcomes are. I'll give you one example.
Please.
I took a job with CA last year in India, and my team, I had a fairly large team, but multiple business units. I remember a discussion with one organization where they said they're doing agile. I asked them, what does that mean?
Yeah, what does it mean?
So we have Scrum team, Scrum Masters, we have RTE, we do stand-ups, we have the right artifacts, all of the things that checked all the boxes. I had a discussion with someone else who said, we adopted Agile. He said, when I asked him what that meant, he said, we saved 6 months, we cut our development cycle time by 6 months, we increased capacity by 30%, and our NPS is off the charts.
It's a much better answer, isn't it? One's just checking the boxes, the other one's real results.
The focus on the outcome. So I think that's really, and so when I think about agile management in the broad sense, I think about it really in how we work, how we get our work done in the future. It's almost like the modern way of working.
Yeah. And so, what are some of the future directions that are important from a technology perspective?
When I look at this modern way of working, we today have a pretty good idea of, let's say, where we want to invest in the near term. But the further out you go, the harder it becomes to define what it is. But we run our strategy really around lines of business. And IT and line of business working together is a good way for the support to be provided to those objectives. So if you, for example, using our PPM product, which is where people look at what kind of funding is in place, what priorities are being funded, what's the timeline, etc. That's the kind of the business lens, if you will, of how you run the business. And then our Agile Central product, which came through the Rally acquisition, is where the work gets done. And now you know what my capacity is, what are we going to meet the milestones and the deliverables, what are you involving the entire value stream, so you're actually bringing together all of the various parties that are involved in getting a product out. Are you putting the customer in the center of what you're doing? So that's where the work gets done. So that's the execution lens. So what I see as a technology direction is tying these two together, the business lens with the execution lens. And if you think of it in terms of our product, that's really PPM plus Agile Central. Another area, very interesting, is we know we have access to a lot of data, or I should say more importantly, our customers have access to a lot of their data. Today what we do is we present that data to them. Interesting? Yeah. But what we really should be doing is giving them insights that are predictive. So, for example, we can say, based on your past performance or history in the program increments that you've done, we can actually tell you, we can give you an advance warning if you are signing up for something that's over your capacity capability, because we know how you've done in the past. That's just one example. And in order to do that, we have to bring machine learning and artificial intelligence to the data and apply the analytics so we can be insightful. That's another area that we're focusing on. And the third area is really around making sure that we're presenting our screens or the information based on the persona of the user. So a business user may want a different kind of interaction with the tool or with the product,
whatever it might
dashboard, versus someone who's a developer or a program manager. And so we're also looking at how to make that persona much more
Well, it should be very flexible and morph as required to the person using it.
That's right.
But you were saying back in the very first point of these 3 points that the future's hard to predict.
Yes.
Yogi Berra, the famous American baseball guy, famously said, "Prediction's difficult, especially when it's about the future."
Yes, exactly.
He said a lot of funny things.
He did, yeah.
It's very funny to read them. But also, I mean, CA is famous for obviously you've made acquisitions, but you've been doing all of this for yourself. You've had to learn about these things and put these things into practice to have any authority in helping your own customers. So your own systems must have benefited from all of this agile management.
Absolutely.
And you must be able to say to your customers, "Hey, we've done X, Y, and Z, and look
Absolutely.
at the look."
And both in our IT organization as well as in the engineering organization, and now it's actually going beyond. I know marketing is using Agile Central as well. We've had parts of sales, the sales organization use it, legal, finance. So there's different parts of the organization that are using it because it has
these benefits.
It's clear benefits.
Yeah.
So there's the agility from a software development perspective, but then there's business agility that really impacts across the entire organization. And as you correctly pointed out, we've been through that. We're in that journey ourselves. We've come a long way, but of course, there's always more to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about continuous improvement
That's right.
and evolution,
That's
which is
right.
one of the tenets that CA is embracing. I mean, the example I've given as a counter to other people I've spoken to is that with our smartphones, the evolution's sort of once a year. With Windows, it was every 3 years. Now with Windows, it's every 6 months. There's new features, and sort of we now expect this continual evolution, and we hope it doesn't break things too badly.
In fact, for Agile Central,
Yeah.
we practice true DevOps. Now, we didn't start with doing as many deploys as we do today, but we now, believe it or not, we do 250 deploys a month. So every day, during this discussion, we probably did a deploy.
That's it. Well, that's nearly 10 a day, isn't it?
Yes,
Almost.
exactly. Yeah.
So I always like to ask about the future, and look in the crystal ball, and imagine what this agile management might look like in a decade. I mean, we'll probably be in a post-agile management world. Will be something else, but what might it be?
So here's the way I think about it.
Yeah.
I think at some point it becomes the way you work.
It becomes the new normal.
It becomes a new normal. It becomes the way you work because of some very key business outcomes. Closer to customers, so you're actually delivering what is needed, what they're going to use, what they're going to be delighted by. You're getting that done faster, so you're building the right things faster. And most importantly, your employees have a sense of ownership because they're the ones who are getting together, they're getting the context. They're signing up for the work because they're part of that decision making, and now they're responsible for the outcome.
Yeah.
When we do our big room planning, we bring the entire value stream together. So we have people who are building the product, we have people who are defining the product, managers who are defining the product. We have people who are selling the product, services, support, ops, HR, finance. We have literally every function kind of represented. But the best part, we have customers.
Yeah.
And we don't put on a show for them. That's the actual work being done.
Yeah.
And so what we find is if someone says, I have a great idea, ask the customer. They're right here.
Yeah.
And so we get real-time feedback, and when we do that whole thing. So putting the customer in the middle is another reason why. So ultimately, businesses want to see higher growth, better revenues, better profits, but also happier employees. So you get all of that if you do it the right way.
Sure. So as we get towards the end of the interview, I always like to change gears a little bit and just simply ask if you could please share some of the best advice you've received in life to help you get where you are today.
Well, I certainly learned a lot from my father, and he always had this sense of do the right thing.
Yeah.
And especially growing up in a culture where sometimes you saw a lot of people doing the wrong thing, so I learned that a long way. And the way he said it is, when you look at your children, you should feel like whatever you have, whatever you've done is because of what you've done.
Yes.
And so that meant a lot to me.
Well, it sounds like you've lived up to that for him.
I've certainly tried to live up to that. Of course, it's hard to emulate him, but yes.
Yeah. So do you have any final messages for ITY viewers and readers and for your current and future global customers?
Yeah, I would say focus on the outcomes. That's such a big thing. The process, the people are important, the tools are important, but the mindset and coming back to the business, many of your readers and viewers would probably want to deal with the CEO or CXO asking tough questions. I would say to say I went from 40% agile to 60% agile is interesting, but that's not what they really care about. What they care about is I went from 40% agile to 60% agile, and therefore we saved this much money, or we shortened the amount of development time. This is the capacity we increased. Those are the things they care about. So always I would recommend couching it and extracting the real value, the business value, and not so much focusing on the actions.
Sure. And when you say focus on the outcomes, it's like the famous saying, start with the end in mind.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
so many of these, truisms, or I'm not sure if that's the correct word, but so many of these well-known sayings, there's truth in them, and we sort of have to rediscover them all the time. Well, Surya, thank you very much for your time. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope to talk to you again in the future.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.